Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this charm Kumihimo bracelet where the charms are kind of incorporated into the actual braid. And this is what it looks like. So you have your nice movement on your piece with your charms. And then I've just chosen to do a two-colour Kumihimo braid with a black and a blue cord, kind of metallic cord. And then also I've just chosen to put spaces in there in the braid to kind of help break up the sections. There's a bit extra detail. And the materials that I'm using today to create this charm Kumihimo bracelet you can find at pandahaul.com. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description box to the website so you can go and have a look if you want. But otherwise, if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then stay tuned. And these are the things that we're going to need. Now first off, we'll need to get out a round Kumihimo disc because we're going to be making a basic 8-strand round braid. We're just using the two colours for this. And those two colours that I'm using are just these. It's a black and then a nice blue. And this is some nice metallic cord that I've got, so it'll give a really nice look, I thought. So the blue and the black here along with some silver colour. But you can obviously use whatever cord you want to use for yours. And you can also easily change up the amount of colours that you use. So you can just use one colour if you want to, or even more. I'm just using these two. The design of the actual braid is completely up to you. And then as for the accessories that we're going to be adding to the braid, here I have some little spacers, and these are just some nice silver coloured spacers, metal ones, and they have nice detail to them. So they look something like this, and then what they have, these spacers, is quite a large hole running through the middle. So you can use whatever spacers that you want to. You just got to make sure that the hole in the spacers are large enough for 8 lengths of your cord to go through. That's also, you might not want to use too thick of a cord. But that's all you got to make sure of regarding your spacers. And also how many of your spacers and your other things that you want to use is completely up to you. It really all depends on how many you want on your braid and also how large you want your bracelet to be. And as for the charms that I'm using, it's these. And these again are just a silver colour, so they'll go nicely with my spacers as well. And I just thought the black and the silver and the blue colour would be nice together. And these specific ones are just some fleur-de-lis charms, sorry. So they look like that. You can obviously use whatever you want, and again the amount you need completely depends on how often you want them on your braid and also the size that you want your bracelet to be. And then to go with your charms here, what we'll also need is some jump rings, because it's the jump rings that are actually going to go in the braid as we're braiding it, and we're just going to be attaching the charms onto them afterwards. So you'll need the same amount of jump rings as you have of your charms. And then to help create the braid, what I have here is a Kumihimo weight. I'm just going to be using this to help create a more of a neater and tighter finish to the braid. I don't tend to use a weight on most of my projects with Kumihimo. I just like to use it when I'm using some finer cords like this. So I don't really use it when I'm using, say, 1mm satin cord, but I do like to use it for the finer cords. And now if you don't have a specific Kumihimo weight, you don't necessarily need to use this. You can make something up yourself. So say get a little bag, maybe an organza bag, and put some stones or some coins in there, just a little bit of weight to it, and then attach that to the end of your braid. So that'll work just as well. And then what I have up here is some glue. Now obviously we'll need the glue to finish off our braid at the end, but I'm actually going to be using this throughout the braid as well, and I'm going to show you that as we go. In this case I'm just using the GS Hypo Cement glue. I really like using this in general because it's got a really fine nozzle tip to it, so you can really be precise with your gluing, but also it dries clear, so if anything spills out, it's not the end of the world, you won't really be able to see it. And then finally what I have here is some Kumihimo ends, and these are just the bell-shaped ends. So they look like this, and you put the end of your braid inside of it with some glue. So we need some of them, and then obviously we'll also need some jump rings and whatever clasp and extended chain possibly that you want to use. So you just want to get them as well. And then otherwise, let's get all the materials together and then let's get started. So to get started, we first need to cut a length of cord. And like I said, in this case, I'm just using the two colours that I'm working with. You can obviously choose just one colour or even more, that's completely up to you. But what I've cut is I've cut 8 lengths of 1 metre each. And now, the reason for this is what I'm going to do is tie a knot in the middle of all of these when I put them together at the end here, so all the ends are together, and then tie a knot in the middle, and then this is going to be a starting point. It's going to be going through the centre of the disc, So we're going to be doubling them over, but this actually gives us 16 working cords. And now the reason for this is I'm going to be doubling them up, so working with 2 as if they were one strand. So 2 in each slot basically. So as I mentioned earlier, when you get your spacers, you need to make sure you can get 8 lengths of your cord going through. That's if you only want to use 1 in each slot. If you want to use 2 like me, you need to make sure you can get 16 cords through there. And I have tested this and I know this will go through. So that's all you need to make sure of. So you need to cut your lengths like this, and then tie this knot, and then we need to set it up on our disc. So I've now set my cords up on my disc, and this is just how I set them up to achieve the pattern that I want. And like I said, I'm just using the 2 colours, and I just want the spiral pattern with the colours. So you need to set 2 colours opposite each other in the pairs, and the other colour, the opposite pairs as well. So just like this, and then with your knot in the middle to come down through the whole of your disc. And then I'm also going to get my weight now and just attach that. I'm just going to clip it, so open it like this, and just clip the very tip of the teeth, just like that. And it'll hold on nicely to that knot in the middle and help pull down my braid as we go. So now what we need to do is start the actual braid. And the first thing, before I start adding anything else, I'm just going to do a little section where I'm just using the cords to braid with. So what I'm going to do is take my top left, and remember I'm using 2 cords as if they were 1, so just always keep them together from the slot that you take them from. Bring that down to the bottom left, the bottom right, and bring that up to the top right. Then turn the disc, top left, down to the bottom left, and the bottom right, up to the top right, and turn it again. You just keep going like this for a little while until you build up some of your braid with just the cord here. And now you'll find that I'm going, like I said, top left to bottom left, and then bottom right to top right. That's just the way that I do it. You can quite easily go from the other side and go down first and then come up the other side, or go from the bottom and come up. It's whatever comes natural to you. It'll end up with the exact same final look, so whatever feels most comfortable for you. And also with turning your disc, that doesn't matter what direction you turn it in either. So whatever comes natural to you, just keep going the same thing so you stay consistent, so you achieve a consistent look. So I've now kept braiding for a little bit. So when we look on the back, we have a little section of braid here where it's just the cord. And how long you want this to be is really up to you. You can either just go by eye and just say, this looks quite right, or you can count the movements you do so you know what movements you have in between, or you can even just measure it as well to get roughly the same. So that's completely up to you. And then what I'm going to do now is actually get out some glue. So this is some of my GS Hypo Cement, where it has a really fine tip to it, as you can see there. So you can really do some precision gluing. And what I'm going to do, before I do anything else now, I want to put a bit of glue on this braid. So in the center here, where all the cords are crossing over, I need to put some glue in there. And like I said as well, because this dries clear, so it'll be fine if a little bit actually would show. You can't really see it because it dries clear. But you just want to put a bit of glue here in the center. You don't need to put too much in there, but just enough so you can kind of hold all the cords together. Because what we need to do next is actually take a braid off the disc, but we want to make sure that all the braiding we've already done doesn't come undone. So that's why I'm just using the glue for this. And it's also good to use this because when this glue dries, it kind of stays flexible. So that's really helpful for the next step that we're going to be doing. Because if this was, say, like a super glue where it goes hard when it dries, it'll be really hard to actually keep working with what we need to do. So I really recommend using this glue if you have it. Otherwise, use something else that you feel will be alright to use with it. And then what you want to do is just leave this for a little bit, let it go a bit tacky, so that we can actually take it off the board, so it's nice and secure as well, so we don't have to worry about it coming undone. So what I'm also just going to do before I take it completely off the board, because I feel like my glue's gone nice and tacky now, but before I take it off completely, I'm just going to turn it around here, and then on the back side, I'm going to take a piece of spare cord, or you can use some spare wire, whatever you have, and then I just want to use this to tie around the back, close to where the finish of my braid is. It's just to secure the cords in place even more. So you just tie it around your braid with a regular knot. Make sure that it gets tied right round basically where your braiding ends. And then I like to do a couple. You can always take the weight off while you're doing this if it's in the way. Just do a couple a bit round the front to the other side, and so it's nice and tight, so it will hold your cords together even more. Like that. That's pretty nice and good enough. So now I feel that I'm actually ready to take this off of my board. So I've now taken it off my disc, still being careful, but as you can see it's holding nicely because of the glue and then also the cord. I do like to make sure that I use the cord as well, just because if you miss the glue a little bit somewhere. And then what I'm going to do is we need to take our spacer now, because this is what we're going to add to all the cords. And what you can do to help you add it, because obviously at the beginning the first few cords are going to be easy enough to get through, but once you start filling your hole up with cords it can be hard to get the rest of them through. So a little tip with that can be to kind of make your own needle. If you have a needle to use you can just use that, but if you don't, because obviously you need to be able to get your cord through the eye of the needle, so you can just make your own from a bit of scrap wire if you want to, and then just kind of bend it like this so you have almost your own little needle with an eye down there. Put your cord through, do one at a time if you want to, and then help that to feed through until you get all your cords through there. So you want to get all your cords through your spacer here. So I've now gotten all my cords through my spacer bead here, and if it's a bit of a snug fit, that's absolutely perfect. If anything, that's almost a bit better, because it'll help keep hold of the cords nicely through the center of it. And then all you do is just push it down all the way, and then gradually pull out your cords a little bit so they're all even, so you don't have any sticking out on the underside here. And then push it down. You can do kind of one or two at a time, pull them, so you kind of pull them tighter down underneath it. And this is just taking a bit of time doing that until you feel like it sits just right, so that it sits right above where your braiding ends, basically, like this. And then your braid will be nice and secure, because at the moment we still have the cord wrapped around. Obviously we will be taking that off. You can either take it off now or just leave it on until maybe the next one you do, so when you continue braiding after this. But otherwise it sits there nice and securely, and it's holding all your cords together, and you also have a bit of glue in there, which is, some of that is now sitting inside this spacer, so it helps hold all the cords in place. So like this, that's now in place. So what we need to do now is get a disc back out again, and then place it back on the disc into the position that we want it to be, and then start making some more braiding. So I've now distributed my cords again on my disc, and I've just put them in the exact same position as I started out originally from when I started the braid. And this is just how you want it to put it. I'm just going to be doing this every time I add one of these spacers. Put them in the same position again like this. And on the back side I've also just added my weight to it again to help me create the braid and pull it through. So now we need to continue the braiding. So just as if we were just continuing from the original braid that we did, we just added that spacer in between. So I'm just going to again go from the top left, bring it down, bottom right, and bring it up. The exact same braid that I just did before. And obviously if you have your cord set up in a different way, use a different amount of colours, you just want to do it however you want your pattern to be. So just do this for a little bit again. Now how long you want to do this for is completely up to you. You can either try and keep the spaces of your braid, so the length of your braid in between your spacers and in between the jump rings we're going to be adding the same, if that's what you want, kind of a symmetrical look. Or you could also just do it completely random if that's what you prefer. But again, it's the same principle. You can either measure it by eye and just think that looks pretty good and then add your jump ring next, or you can measure it with a ruler, or you can even count the steps that you do in moving your cords. So say that I would count as one, because that's one full pair that you've done, and then flip it, and then I'll count this as two, and then just count until you feel that you reach the right point, and you'll know how many turns to do for the next one again. So that's another way to do it. That's completely up to you. But then once I reach the point where I'm going to add my jump ring, I'm going to show you that then. So now that I've done a bit more braiding, and I'm happy with the space I have there, so the amount of braiding that I have, until I want to add my jump ring in now, because this is the place where I'm adding my jump rings. We're going to later on be attaching our charms to them. So that's what you want to think about. So you want to get out one of your jump rings, and then I'm just going to put it down, and then grab the next set that I was going to do. So I'm going to take these, my top left, bring it down. I'm just going to grab them, and then what I'm going to do is put my jump ring onto these two if you're using 2 lengths of cord. If you're just using one, then just put your jump ring onto that one cord. So like that. So this is basically just like if you're adding a bead. Let it drop all the way down. And then as you're moving it, release your cord, let your jump ring drop all the way down till it falls underneath everything in the middle here. So your jump ring will end up on the outside of your braid, and then just continue your braid like that. So you're now adding in that jump ring in this set, and again all you do is continue with the same braiding now. And like I said, you can either do it so the spacing, the amount of braid in between your spaces and your jump rings are about the same, or you can just do it at random, however you want it to look. So continue a bit of braiding again, and then what you need to do to achieve the same pattern is we're going to add one of the spaces on next again in the exact same way that I showed you before. So that's the pattern that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to add a spacer, jump ring, spacer, jump ring, spacer, jump ring, until I reach the length that I want it to be. So this is how you're going to keep doing this, the exact same technique throughout. So I've now continued with my same pattern throughout, and then I'm ending up with a braid that looks something like this. So you got my spacers here, and then my jump rings in between, and this is just the pattern that I like doing. And then what I've done is I've ended up on a spacer as well, just to make it even. So I start on a spacer and then I ended on a spacer, but that's obviously completely up to you. So this is what the braid looks like up close with the jump rings. Well, we're going to use them in a bit. I attach the charms, and then what we need to do now is just finish off this end, and then we're done with the Kumihimo. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to tie some knots here. It's just to basically secure the cords in place, so when we take it off the board it's not going to come undone. So the last pair that I just did was the black ones in my case. So what I want to do is use the opposite pair, and then I take the 2 cords that are very opposite each other on the disc, so these 2, and then I bring them across the middle and then tie a regular overhand knot like that, and then I just tighten it, and then as I tighten it the knot forms down and sits right on top of the end of my braid there. And put my cords back in and do the same thing with the other 2 of the same set, the same pair. Tie the knot and tighten it so it sits right next to the other one, but on top of the end of your braid there, like that. And then I move to the other pair, and in my case the black ones. Take the 2 very opposite each other, tie your knot and tighten. So these knots now are going to sit on top of the previous ones we just did. And the last ones like that. So it's now nice and secure. And then what actually you can do now is take it off the board, and it's not going to just come undone. And then I'm also just going to grab my glue again, because I just want to secure the knots in place so I can actually cut off the excess. So I take the same glue that I've been using throughout, and I just go around where I tie these knots and just put a bit of glue around the actual knots and then the ends where my cords are coming out. So you just want to do that, and then let it dry so they stay nice and secure so you can cut off the excess. And you want to then take your scissors and cut them off right close to where they're coming out, and then you have a nice and neat finish to this end. So now I've finished off that end, so there's no excess cord left, so it's nice and neat. And then You can either finish off your ends now by putting on Kumihimo ends now, or you can add your charms first, it doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to do it now, and all I'm going to do is just use them to place on the ends here. Put a bit of glue in there first, and then place them on and let them dry. Now I have a tutorial on how to do that already, so I'm going to link that in the description box. So if you're not sure how to do that, you can have a look at that. So now that I've added my Kumihimo ends to both ends, the main part of the bracelet is done. So all that's left to do now really is add the actual charms. And like I said, I'm going to use these, the Fleur de Lis charms. Nice and little delicate ones, but that's just what I'm going to be using. Another example could be these. It's like a very nice, quite large snowflake, but it kind of fits it really well, I think. So that's just an option. You can always use whatever charms you want to use, or you could even just make your own charms by using stones or beads and then some head pins and make a charm out of that. So it's completely up to you. But what I'm going to do is just take another jump ring. I'm just going to use the same ones, and I like to use jump rings not too large so they don't kind of overpower both the piece but also the charm. And then just take whatever pliers you have, chain nose, flat nose, and just open it up like you would a normal jump ring, like you open a door. And then I'm going to get my braid here and then go through one of the jump rings that I added to the actual braid, and then also add my charm. Like that, and then just close up the jump ring again so it's nice and secure. Make sure you close it nicely, and then you have your charm attached. And I like to put that extra jump ring in there and not just add the charm to the jump rings that I've put in the braid, because it gives it a little bit extra movement. Obviously that's completely up to you. I just like to add that little extra touch, and then you just want to add your charms to the rest of them as well. So I've now added all my charms, and I've also gone in and added the clasp and extender chain. You can just choose to add whatever you want to use. And then this is the finished bracelet. So really nice detail where the charms are incorporated into the braid because of the jump rings. And you can obviously say it's kind of interchangeable as well, because you can just change out your charms by opening and closing your jump rings. So that's a nice detail, and then also the spaces that are used to help break up the sections and give it a bit more detail. So this is the finished piece, and you can obviously choose to make it however you want to, with the design you want to. So I really hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to do these heart-shaped Kumihimo earrings. And this is what they look like. So you have the heart shape with the Kumihimo braid, and I just added a little dangle at the bottom to give it a bit of something extra, a little bit of sparkle. And just added it to an earring finding, and I just used some metallic effect cord in two different colours, like a dark pink and a light pink, to make it Valentine's like.